Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews bringing you the next episode of Review Recall. The first one of 2023 and only 5 months late. But yes, this will be me covering as many albums as I could listen to in January of 2023. We got a lot to talk about here, so let's not waste any more time. Let's dive in. I know most people are probably not gonna mess with this, but I don't know, the glamorous pop rock, pop punk stylings here, plus me really enjoying Damiano's more gravelly voice, it kinda clicked for me. Not all of it, as some moments were cringy and embarrassing, especially from a lyrical standpoint, but I don't know, the gems here really stood with me, and overall it was pretty pleasant. Another very solid outing from Jules Clay and Skip the Kid. Jules comes off a bit more mellow on this EP, which works well with Skip's fittingly colder take on production. Not the first collaboration that I jumped to between these two, but there's nothing wrong with the formula. God, what a powerful record given the recent news of his passing. It feels very human, even down to the audible breathing during these alluring, gorgeous, and tear-jerking soundscapes on display, but yet everything feels so hauntingly melancholic here. I'm frankly in awe with this, and I wish I got to be familiar with him during his time on this earth, but I guess better late than never. Rest in peace. While there is good energy here, especially from Iggy himself, I don't know, the sound of this record was a bit too one note for me. Will definitely click with some people, but I don't know, some of these tracks just felt a bit lacking for me to truly enjoy it. Yeah, this was the Sematary project I was looking for. Great energy, very aggressive but an effortlessly catchy listen. Still not an artist I can comfortably recommend, but for those who are in the know, this was great. As much as I absolutely love the ambition, adventurousness, and sheer artistry of a record like this, I'm still not fully sold on it. Don't get me wrong, I think the sound is great, it's very pristine, smooth, and easily the best part of the record, but I do think Yachty's vocals are quite hit or miss and are often the defining factors of whether or not I'll return to this. Though, yet again, I can't deny how admirable it is to see artists like Yachty break away from their bread and butter formulas to dive into an entirely new genre, and I'll happily admit that this is his best album since his first Lil Boat record. It just hasn't swept me off my feet like it seems to have for the rest of the internet. While I don't know too much about Guided by Voices, I've seen their name float around a lot, so curiosity took over with wanting to visit this latest record of theirs, and it was just very solid indie pop, slacker rock vibes. Maybe if I had more experience with the band, this wouldn't hit as hard, but I don't know, I still liked it. Yeah, this was quite a great record for a legacy metal band here. Any fan of 70s hard rock or prog metal, absolutely check this out. At this point, I don't even know what to say about Logic's Peanuts alias anymore with these throwaway tapes. Some have been pretty good, no doubt, but this Picnic one here is probably the weakest of the bunch. Just feels like remnants of what a beat tape could be, aside from the last track, which is basically a proper Logic song. Unfortunately, that doesn't bring it up all that much and still kind of feels like nothing. You know, for someone who started out as a country Baroque singer-songwriter back in the 70s, to come back and deliver a neo-psych record after an 11-year break from new music is extremely admirable, and it just so happens that I also enjoyed it. Yeah, I did not get too much out of this one, to be honest. Just kind of felt like generic dance pop with that flamboyant swagger to it. If I wanted that, his last album, Algorithm, was much better than this. Yeah, this one was just unfortunate. Montega from last year put a bit of hype on whatever new project French Montana would do next, but this was just a near 30-track wave of mediocrity. There's not really any standouts, and the actual features like Benny the Butcher, Jeremiah, Stove God, hell, even Nav has a more memorable presence than French Montana does. It all just feels very generic, and DJ Drama being hype man over generic projects just makes the album feel more sad. An extremely standard pop EP with the faintest sprinkle of country. Basically all I'm saying is it's not worth your time. So I really got to know Michael Minelli through his collaborative album with rapper Futuristic, I Know What You're Thinking, which ranked pretty high on my list the year it came out, so I was very excited to get my first taste of him as a soloist. And it was pretty solid. Michael still got a great voice and can switch between genres with no trouble, from standard hip-hop, R&B, and more dancey style of pop. Quite the versatile artist, and I'm looking forward to seeing him grow some more. Latest EP from this local folk singer-songwriter, and one thing that instantly catches me about this is Karl's deeper voice that well complements the sparseness of these acoustic instrumentals. Aside from that though, there's just not all that much here that stands out. This was a fun EP, dude, I don't care. I love the confidence, solid flow, punchy beats. This had a lot of what I typically enjoy in hip-hop, so I'll be happily returning to this. This is a K-pop female supergroup, which I was extremely excited for when this was announced. I'm all for crossovers in K-pop, so how was this? It was good, though not an all-time favorite. Most of the women on here are excellent vocalists, but this EP seems to focus more on the hard-hitting instrumentals of a pop-trap hybrid, so the vocals rarely play a factor, which is such a shame. That being said, the instrumentation in question is quite good. I especially liked how sinister and menacing the song Outlaw was, probably my favorite here. But as a whole, it did feel a touch lacking, but not bad by any means. Much like the Yachty record, it's very admirable when an artist branches out of their comfort zone. And with Futuristic, it's especially the case because the guy's been adventurous with his career for a while now, always making sure to put a different spin on his brand of hip-hop. Some R&B, some pop, but this album seems him embracing a more pop-punk and punk rock style, which has become surprisingly commonplace for hip-hop artists to do nowadays given MGK's notorious transition. And this is certainly one of the better transitions I've heard. The instrumentation is pretty faithful to a mid to late 2000s pop-punk style. Futuristic is not a bad vocalist either, but there are some tracks here that I think get a bit too bombastic to be substantial, plus the lyrical content is fairly shallow across the board. Certainly not going to be a thing for everyone, but worked for me. However, I will still flock to most of his earlier material over this. I just don't feel like I got anything out of this, which is such a shame because I remember enjoying some of Kimbra's earlier material, especially on Primal Heart, but I don't know, this more moody, alt-pop sound doesn't click with her. At least the hip-hop features were nice, but that's really all I got out of this. So Connor Price really built his name on TikTok being that guy who spins a globe and collaborates with an artist from whatever country he happens to land on, and ultimately took all those collaborations and put them onto an album here. Right away though, this isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I do still have a fondness for this lyrical, spiritual, miracle hip-hop of content creators. Though even by those standards, this is shallow beyond all belief. But the saving grace for me here is the production. I've always been more fond of lively, bass-heavy beats, stuff like Baby No Money that are much closer to pop than the modern trap stylings you see everywhere, and this little project is full of those, so I'll take it. This album seems to be the internet's new punching bag. A lot of people do not care for this one, and I'm kind of in the same boat. It's split up into two halves as listed by the title, and I'm much more fond of the Mockingbird half. It's your standard bro country fare, though I'd be lying if I said it was all duds. Some of these songs could classify as guilty pleasures even, and it's far from the worst collection of modern country songs I've heard. However, the Crow half of this record is pretty awful though. The production and compression is very ugly, and Hardy trading in his pretty inoffensive vocals for some truly disgusting gravelly growls is one of the most baffling things I've heard from a record this year. All in all, it's not complete garbage to me. There are some moments I enjoy, but I kinda get where people are coming from. I feel like a firm kick in the balls would have provided more enjoyment than this EP could ever hope to achieve. Okay, much to my surprise, this was actually a fun listen. Unlike the white wall generic material on RuPaul's last album, this one feels a bit more tasteful, a bit more thought out, possibly a bit more traditional and generic to the more hateful crowd, but honestly, I had a great time with this. I think I preferred the 6-track EP Tyler released earlier for the sole reason that those were truly some of the best tracks here. All of those are on here, and the rest of it is very whatever. Too long, too bloated, and while the clean bro country veneer is fine on a sonic level, some of these lyrics here are fittingly stupid and not worth your time. There's quite a bit of sweet harmonies on this latest nosgov EP, but also way more outright bass-heavy bangers, and I can't help but feel like the former suits her sound and vocals a lot better. Doesn't necessarily make this a disappointing or even bad EP, but I would love to hear a nosgov project full of those twinkly, softer tracks. I think it could be something truly special. As it stands though, if you're into the more punchy and sludgy side of cloud rap, you'll definitely get something out of this. Probably one of the group's best overall projects in a few years. I really love the opening 2 tracks, and the closer certainly does its job well enough, and Coil Ray actually gives a pretty solid verse on Happy Fools, so yeah, it's pretty well rounded. So twogeebs is an anonymous hip-hop artist from New Jersey, another affiliate of this underground hip-hop scene I follow so closely, and I really enjoy his sound here. The energy in particular was very enjoyable, wordplay was quite appealing, and of course Skip has yet to miss on production, always finding a way to blend in with the headlining MC. Very excited for Jeep Tape 4. Definitely one of the weaker Quinn 92 albums. It just doesn't have that sticky appeal earlier records did, and truly felt like a disappointment coming after Change of Scenery too. That being said, I still like his sound a lot, so I'm not able to fully reject it, but there's no way this is going to be a frequent revisit at all. I'm not gonna lie, I've been getting kinda tired of DJ Drama's insistent presence on albums recently, so I was quite happy to hear him not being as prominent on this one. That being said, this tape is still not all that great. J-Stone's energy and flows here are solid and don't really make for any duds, but there's also not that many true highlights here. I will still say it's solid though. Well, good to get an early frontrunner for least favorite album of the year out right away. Thanks, Summers. I am so conflicted on this album because the first half is AJR core garbage, the second half is the more sentimental pop ballads, the lane I think Lucas Graham excels in, and it's done well here, but the instrumentation is very sterile and too clean, but this was such a disappointment from a band I used to really enjoy, even back from the Blue album or the Purple album. Pink here is just vapid, pretty much empty, and when it finally picks up steam, it's too little too late. This is one of the weakest Boldy James albums I've heard. Pretty standard beats, a weak energy from Boldy all around. Even if his lyrics are solid, the features don't do much to help either. Not a strong start to 2023 for Boldy. Any of his material from 2022 trumps this. Easy. Sensory Flows is one of the weaker Yesung projects for me. A lot of city pop on the first half and the typical ballads from a primary vocalist on the back half. Don't get me wrong, Yesung is an excellent vocalist and does good work throughout the tracklist, but it does feel a little bit flat compared to the more soulful areas of earlier EPs that felt way more complimentary to his vocal talent. As it stands, still a great album. I don't think the man can even do wrong, but not high on my list of revisits when his other projects deliver stronger. Maybe not great, but still good. I'll say right now that I'm not the biggest proponent of drone or ambient, anything really in that scene. It's not something that really clicks with me, but I was curious to see this name amongst some of my contemporaries, and this didn't really do much to convince me. In fact, I'd argue it only solidified my feelings for the genre. All just personal taste though. If you're into drone at all, check this out and form your own opinion, but I guess just wasn't for me. Another very solid underground EP here, a brief listen but certainly an engaging one with Cash being one of the more aggressive rappers in that scene, and his energy rarely fluctuates throughout these 4 tracks. Not bad at all. So, I guess Elle King is going country now after the big hit with Miranda Lambert, and frankly, I just think she's managed to blend in with the crowd instead of stand out. Admittedly, the music is still good, but I would happily take any of her music over most of the stuff on here. Was not feeling all that much from this latest Shaq Bruce EP. It still definitely felt like him. He has a solid flow, decent beats, but this EP is so insubstantial. Not necessarily in context to Shaq's discography, but just as a whole. 5 songs and not even 10 minutes long, you barely get a chance to comprehend the themes, and before you know it, it's over. It almost feels like a throwaway project. That being said, it's not bad, just feels lacking. Okay, this was quite a great album here. It took a while to get started, but once it hit that second half with the bolder experimentation, dynamic flow, and more memorable songs, yeah, it was solid. Given the genre in question Echo typically inhabits, I was a little bit worried. Some of its contemporaries haven't been dropping the best records recently. However, this one wasn't that bad at all. Of course, he still partakes in the lyrical, spiritual, miracle sort of stuff that would have really tickled my brain like 6 years ago, but there was a lot more tender moments on here than expected, and I think those were genuinely good, if a bit shallow, but shine like beacons on the tracklist comparatively. Despite being an hour long, I enjoyed this. Won't be for everyone at all, but I'll still take it. Yeah, one of Belle and Sebastian's better albums, to be honest, in their entire career even. Certainly their best in at least a decade and a half. Love the tighter production, great instrumentations, and the band still shows they have that knack for writing incredible hooks and melodies even after nearly 30 years together. Can't wait to see what comes next. To give the benefit of the doubt, Youngboy's done worse. Even though most of these songs are way too short to leave lasting impacts, the energy and production is good enough, so not bad. Yeah, this on the other hand was pretty bad. Of course, a bunch of pop country singers partnering with an electronic producer for some of the most soulless country tinged music of the past decade was gonna be ass. I was a little bit more indifferent towards this one than I truly wanted to be. While I did really enjoy Crown's debut album Kings in the North, this was just a step up in pretty much every way. Tighter melodies, great album flow, glad to see this band improving. You know, the whole Moonbin situation is extremely unfortunate, and I wish I could have gotten into this group properly while he was still alive, and this EP from the Astro subunit is quite good at that. Furious Styles always seems to be content giving us little bite-sized projects working with its contemporaries, and I think it's a format that suits his production style very well, just enough to where you're not oversaturated with the sound, but still satisfied with when the experience is over. This is a very pleasing and accessible record, no doubt. It's got a great dose of indie rock that pretty much everyone can enjoy, but it does feel like more than just your standard indie rock album, and it may be the injections of neo-psych letting those impressions loose. While I do wish the vocals had a bit of a stronger impact on the record, the sound and songwriting were more than enough to give this a recommendation. As much as I enjoyed Babytron's sound on the Old Testament, this New Testament version is more of the same, but it's just too damn long, so if you fuck with his sound, there's no reason to not check this out. Are people just not liking this record solely because Unholy is on it? I mean, I know that's a polarizing song and all, but the rest of the album rarely matches that song's bold direction. To me, this is just a pleasant pop R&B record with Sam's excellent voice layered over it. Is it a bit trite? Maybe, but that's hardly been a problem for me. I don't know, I still enjoyed this a good bit. This new Blank Thought record flew by very quickly, but I guess that just comes with most of the tracks not even being 2 minutes long. For what it is though, it is good. I particularly enjoyed the production courtesy of our host over the actual performances, but I guess I just typically look for a bit more substance in my hip-hop records though. Okay, you ever stand in an elevator for about 35 minutes? I had very little hope going into this, and my suspicions were confirmed pretty quickly. It's bloated, the features carry the record, it's another one of these long-ass trap albums where you take your favorites and leave the duds behind. Yeah, this one was just a really fun pop album full of upbeat jams. Maybe gets a bit one note at a time, but frankly, I don't see what's not to like. Alrighty folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Review Recall. Thank you all so much for watching, I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and go follow all my social media links. The links will be down in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.